Greetings! Today we'll be taking apart and upgrading the SSD on a 2010 Mac Mini. First, you're going to want to open up the bottom panel here. You can just press down and turn. Bottom panel should just come right off. See? A lot of guides will say you need to take out the RAM. I find this is not the case. You do have to remove said fan right here, though. I'm doing this in real time, no rehearsal. It comes out with a T5 Torx. Sorry about the lighting and any shakiness that happens here. Want to be careful about this connector here, because it's easy to pull the wires out. Ideally, you would like to get a spudge tool under the edge here. I'm going to use a guitar pick here. And just lift up gently. Fan will come on out. Alright. Next, you're going to want to remove this screw over here. Set that aside. I'm going to try and wiggle this little cover right here out. Now, those are a bigger Torx. I believe they are a T8. They are. I believe those are an Allen key, but you can get away with using a Torx on them. So, and we'll also remove this one Torx screw right here. That is going to be our T4, if memory serves. Keep note that this is a long screw. Don't want to try and put that back in the wrong spot. I'm going to remove this panel right here. Careful, sometimes they have wires attached to the bottom sides. I'm going to just go ahead and lay that out of the way. Now, normally you would need a specialty tool to remove this, but I find if you're really careful about it, I'm going to pop these up too. These are the hard drive connectors right here. Gently pop those both up. I think I need to remove that screw there as well. I believe that is a T8. It is. I want to be careful not to use an undersized screwdriver bit, as it's very easy to strip these Torx out if you're using the wrong size. There you are. Now, if you're very careful, you can usually work this out right there, like that. Unplug these little connectors here. And there's the hard drive out. So just want to be careful removing these from here. You want to make sure you just pull this straight out. On this particular one, they've got the stock hard drive in here, so there is still tape holding that down. Looks like this one actually had both hard drive options. Which is a good option to have. So, I've peeled the sticker off. You can just pull that straight out. Make sure not to tear that ribbon cable or the little temp sensor. And just go work around the drive. Peel off the little holdy tabs. Be careful not to press down on this cover if you're planning to reuse the drive, so you can accidentally crimp it. I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera real quick here. Okay, so one thing you're going to notice is the side that goes into the case back here has these two little nubs. You want to make sure that you put them on the new drive, whatever it be that you put in, and then get that lined back up in there. Now would be a good time to pop that out, and just be careful not to bend the Wi-Fi antenna connector. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the second drive. I don't know what's in here. Looks like we've got a couple more connectors to come on out. Having difficulty with that. Okie dokie. Now the rest of this board should just slide right out. Want to make sure to remove the power supply connector. And this should be free to just slide on out. This is logic board and Wi-Fi card assembly. Oops. I'll just slide on out the back. There we have it, 2010 MacBook Pro without the specialty removal tool. You want to be careful not to put too much pressure on. Sometimes they'll just lurch a little bit. I'm holding on to the back edge of the heatsink here and the back edge of the RAM slot. Alright. It's always safer if you have the proper tools, but sometimes it's just not possible. I'm going to set that aside safely. Now for the fun part. Hard drive appears to be caught on the power supply just a little bit. Apologies for being off frame. Having trouble getting this one little tidbit out. There we go. Got the clip that holds the power connector out. This should just rotate a little bit. And the power supply will just slide right on out. You should be able to just lift that up and out. And there's your little IR receiver, I think. Yep. IR receiver and LED on the edge of the hard drive bracket. Now, on the drives the models that you only have one hard drive, it's going to be the lower one. Okay. I have a 500 gigabyte hard drive. It's not focusing very well. There we are. See, this is the original hard drive in here. I believe this was two of the same drive, but in a RAID 0 configuration for better speed. Okay. This one's pretty straightforward to get out of the clip. Let me just refocus the camera here. And reset the lock. There we go. And just remove these two little screws here. This will just pivot out. I believe that is a T8. There we are. You may find it easier to remove all four of them. And there we are. We have the hard drive out. This one you want to lift up just a little bit. Peel this tape off. Make sure you're not, damage the ribbon cable. Sometimes it's easier if you have a set of anti-static tweezers. At which point this connector will just come right out. There we are. Now for putting it back together, I'm going to go ahead and put in a pair of new SSD, or at least one new SSD. A couple Inland Pros, 240 gigabyte. There you are. Now keep in mind which direction this frame goes back into the computer. See, the ribbon cable is going to come down hinge down and attach to the logic board. So you're going to make sure it goes in like that. I mean, screws back through the rubber mount can sometimes be a little bit difficult, but it's not undoable. And this one's going to be a little bit tricky. Really helps if you have a lightly magnetic screwdriver. Keep in mind that's not good if you're working around hard drives. Although in my experience, it hasn't really mattered much. There we are. First SSD is in. These are inexpensive inlands. They're all of about $30 on Amazon. So you just line that right on it. I've got the second inland SSD. I'm going to go ahead and put this, note this little temp sensor right here. Be real gentle not to break the wires off of it. But there we are. Just transferred it over to the new SSD. These are still M8s, or T8s. Beg pardon. Please note the side that the screws came out of. Sometimes on these SSDs the screw holes are a little thin and light, shall we say. So make sure not to over torque them because you can strip the holes on these. And now for the ribbon. It is, since there's no exposed circuit boards, there's not really a necessity to put this back on. But in case you ever switch them back out for regular drive, it's good to have the little covers there. And this has a little cover for the temperature sensors. That helps hold it in place while it's in the computer. Here's the other SATA connector. Alright. I'm going to just go ahead and tuck these little nubs. I don't know if you'll be able to see. But into those holes right up there. Make sure to lay the ribbon cables down flat. Suppose this would have been easier to put in prior. But there we are. Nice and easy, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and reinsert the power supply. Just line this up. Slides right on in. Just be careful of your cables that you don't pinch them. Now, there's a little groove in the roof of the housing. You know, just kind of line that up on the rear of the two grooves. And I'll line that up and give it a twist. It should seat in there just like that. Then you take this little clip here, and if you bent the tab, just bend it back down a bit. That just lines up and clips into the bottom of that connector, like so. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. That way. Now you're going to want to reseat this power connector right here. It's much harder to do later on, if not near impossible. There we are. Power connector is the one bottom edge there. Just make sure that's seated all the way. Go ahead and press this the rest of the way into the chassis, making sure that all these little tabs along the edge go in, at which point it should just rest right in there. Just reconnect all little sensors and such. I had the SSD come out of the little cable management bits. That just presses right back down in there. Just like so. Go ahead and center and reconnect these. Just give them a firm little push. Same for these connectors, they push straight down, do not pull in any direction. And bring up the auto brightness just a little bit. Drop that screw right in there. Go ahead and tighten the screws down as you put them in. Don't go whole hog, because you'll never get them back out if you ever need to change the drives again. Once I get the fan connected, I'm going to go ahead and give the system a test boot before I put everything else back together. Just need to grab a power cable for it. Any old standard barrel plug. misplaced my HDMI test cable. There we are. Power. Alright, I've got a gray screen on the external monitor. And it's currently booting Windows because one of those SSDs was used. I'm going to go ahead and pull the cable. And there we are. We've got a fully upgraded Mac. All we got to do, and it all boots. It's all happy. We want to just make sure if there's any dust in the vent down here. Want to blow that out before you put the fan in. To make sure you put this shield in. Shield's really not necessary for function of the machine, but you got to figure there's a reason Apple put it in there. And try and make sure not to pinch the cables here. Now, someone's been into this particular Mac before I was. That one's spring tension. If you were to replace the thermal paste, you would have done that with the logic board out. It may take just a little bit of force here. Not as much as I just used. There we are. And if you just bent any of the fins like I did, just go ahead and gently bend them back. There you are. Never claimed to be a professional. Just a hobbyist doing this to his own equipment. That screws in now. Y'all are probably screaming at me that I forgot a couple of screws. And he'd be right. But they're not super necessary. That, and I don't particularly remember where they went. Actually, yes I do. They were mounted in the lid. I'm already far enough away, I'll probably, after getting OS X installed and such, I will more than likely go back and add them back in once I'm sure everything's working properly. I'm going to sneak that in there. There we go. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult. Just for completion's sake. You need your T8. And then these other ones attach the other side of the SSD that we just installed. Maybe a little bit tricky to get started, but there we are. Fully upgraded Mac Mini. I will come back later on and replace the RAM. On a Mac, you want to make sure you replace them with like pairs. So if you have one set of DDR3, you want to make sure they're both the same size and the same speed. Not necessarily matter about the manufacturer or if they're Mac specific. This will work with PC RAM just fine. Just got to make sure it's within speed spec for the Mac. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I've had pretty good luck just putting over whatever DIMMs of RAM I had in that were a matched set. This theoretically maxes out at 8 GB of RAM. I have upgraded a 2012 all the way up to 16 GB with just two 8 GB DIMMs, and it's worked perfectly. Alright, as for replacing the bottom panel, you'll see a couple of little dots here, and you'll see a matching dot right on the panel. Line it up with the open one, and just give it a little twist using these little thumb holes. And there you are. You have an upgraded Mac Mini, all set to roll, all set to reload your OS. Hope this has been helpful to somebody. This is Meowarchy signing off.